Welcome back, YouTube. I know I said that my next set of videos was going to be about herbs, but we got a bit of an emergency behind us, so let's take care of this one in this video. Hey guys, as you can see, I got 4 beds along my west fence here that have become a little bit of a disaster. So there's various reasons for this, and I'll get into that later. Right now, as you can see, I'm cutting the lawn, but I've got these 15-foot pumpkin vines crawling along the ground that is preventing me from cutting it properly. So that's not the reason we have to deal with the beds. It's just, you know, one more thing that's telling me, okay, let's go clean up this corner. All right, so we have our nice golden brown lawn all cut. Which is nice because I shouldn't have to cut it again until probably mid-September. So I got a good month and a half here of not having to cut the lawn. Although once I deal with these pumpkin vines, I'll have to run the lawnmower over those pieces. It is smoking hot out today. You know, we're in Victoria, BC. It is the beginning of August, and this is traditionally the hottest month of the year. So it is really hot. I don't even want to take a guess. I'd say probably 28 in Celsius, whatever that is in Fahrenheit. Yeah, hot for Victoria. So the theme of today's video is going to be a midsummer replanting of a garden bed. In this case, 4 garden beds. Now there's several reasons why you would want to do this. Either you've harvested all of that crop and it's done, and you're left with a bare bed. Maybe that crop isn't producing like you'd want it to be, and maybe even the crop has failed outright. So knowing that, and knowing that you are going to redo these beds, where you are time-wise in the summer, as well as where you are in the world, is going to dictate what you can and cannot do with those beds. So here in Victoria, BC, you know, we have 2 months of summer left, so our options are wide open. I can grow stuff from seed. I can go to the garden center and get potted plants and put them in there. As well, I could go and take cuttings from existing plants and get them in there and get them well started. And depending what else I have in the garden and how everything else is doing, maybe I just want to plant a cover crop, like say alfalfa, or maybe some peas or beans, and get some nutrients back into these beds for the fall crops. So let's quickly have a look at these 4 beds here and discuss why they're in the state that they're in. So these beds are all planted very similar. We have rows of tomatoes along the back of different heirloom varieties. And in the front, you know, we have mixtures of peppers, zucchinis, and of course these pumpkin vines. And so you can see these beds are, you know, pretty much in a state of disrepair. Oh, there's a nice little pocket. That would be Sweetie, so that's an heirloom vine cherry. The great thing about this hot weather and having that sort of wet early spring, bumper crop of blackberries. So back to those beds. There's a couple reasons why I think that they failed. They are the furthest away from my watering system, so there might have been, you know, a bit of neglect there. I also didn't get a top layer of mulch on there until quite late in the season, so there was a lot more evaporation, a lot less of locking down that moisture, you know, that a thick organic mulch layer can do. But I don't think that that's why those beds failed. Those beds failed because I paired the wrong plants together. You know, zucchinis and pumpkins, and all squash for that matter, are heavy feeders, meaning they take a lot out of that soil. They take a lot of water out of that soil, they take a lot of nutrients out of that soil, and their roots take up a lot of room. Now, as most of you know, that describes tomato plants as well. So the fact that I had a wall of tomato plants along the back there, and in the front had zucchinis, it was just the wrong pairing. They were just too much for that bed. It was overplanted. And so I thought I could have got away with it, you know, because the zucchinis and the pumpkins would grow out onto the lawn. And I thought, okay, that's enough room for the tomatoes to grow. And sure enough, shoots-wise, that is enough room. But under the soil, they were just competing for far too limited of resources. And so the plants were weaker. They couldn't hold the moisture as well as they should have on the hottest days. And they did become susceptible to aphids in the end. So chalk it up to a lesson learned. Don't plant the zucchinis with the tomatoes, which is fine. You know, to me, you can learn a lot more with your crop failures than you do with the successes. So lesson learned, I won't do it again. So the question is, what am I going to do with those beds now? So initially, you know, the first step, I have two options. One, I can gut the beds completely, take everything out, cut it all down. I won't pull it out because I'm still doing no-till farming, so it all has to be cut down at the soil level. And the second option would be to leave a select few of those tomato plants along the back there to grow, because, you know, some of them are still fine, and then take out that front row of plants. You know, the peppers, the pumpkins, and the zucchini. Take those all out and then plant something in the front there. And I think that's what I'm going to do, because it seems a shame to cut down some of those. Well, they're probably about 8 feet tall, especially the cherry tomatoes. They're still producing great, so it would be a shame to cut those down at this point when they could produce for another 2 months. So yeah, that's a solid plan going forward. So let's get set up and clean out those beds. So again, we'll be using the no-till method, the no-disturb method of cleaning out these beds. Check out this guy. You know, a solid 25-pound pumpkin in August in Victoria. Too cool. All right, so I've harvested all the pumpkins and quite a few zucchinis, and I have cleared out the front of all 4 beds. Took less than 15 minutes, and now we're ready for the next step. So as you can see, I've left quite a bit of vegetative material on top of the beds, simply because there's no reason not to use some of the foliage that was in there as a mulch. So, which brings me to the next step. Get rid of some of the dead leaves here. Brings me to the next step, which is now let's mulch that back section, leaving the front section open for the new planting. So what we're going to mulch with here is, I cut the lawn earlier in the day, you can see. We're just going to use the grass clippings and the shredded leaves to put a nice green organic mulch on top of that bare soil. So when you're putting this mulch in, you want to be really generous with it. You know, I'll pile it, 4 to 6 inches deep. It doesn't matter. And you do this, and if you've seen any of my mulching videos before, you'll know, oh, tomatoes are falling everywhere. If you've seen any of my mulching videos before, you'll know that if you don't mulch with this stuff, your beds are going to sink. If you look right here, these weren't mulched very well. This is sunk probably, a good 4 to 5 inches, where the 2 zucchini plants were and 1 pumpkin. So now I'll have to go back in and add soil, which is fine, because for what we're going to do next, we are going to have to add some good soil, because we're going to be doing seeds. And so I always have a special soil mixture that I use when I'm planting seeds. It's really hot out today, so me and the puppy are taking frequent breaks in the shade whenever we can. So what you do in the next step is determined by what you want to do with the beds in the coming months. So these 4 beds this year are in my garlic rotation. So that means come October, everything in those beds have to come out. In a normal set of beds, I'd be able to put some fall starters in there. I could do beets right now. I could probably do some onion sets that are a little bit further along. Probably even some big carrots, some carrots that take a long time to do. But I'm kind of hampered because it's August, so I have a 2-month to 2.5-month window where everything's going to have to come out of that bed. So that's fine for the tomatoes. They're going to be done mid to late September. So the front of that bed, I'm limited in what I can plant. And so I know I want to go from seed, because I don't want to be going and buying starter plants now from the nursery. I don't have any starter plants other than basil myself, so I'm not going to be doing basil at this time of the year. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to do 4 rows of lettuce. 1 row in the front of each bed. And it'll be a little bit different than my normal lettuce plantings. My normal lettuce, I plant it in such a way and harvest it in such a way that it's cut and come again. Meaning I take the outside leaves and the lettuce keeps growing and growing and growing. Well, in this case, what we're going to do is we're just going to do 1 giant bumper crop of lettuce. So let's go ahead and I'll show you my super special soil mixture built just for seeds, and then we'll get those lettuce seeds in the ground. Okay, so now it's time to make the soil to fill in those trenches at the front of the beds so that we can plant our lettuce seeds. Now before we do that, I just want to quickly tell you why I make this seedling mixture. You can go ahead and dig trenches where you want to plant seeds, sprinkle your seeds in, fill them back in water. That's fine. Traditionally, that's what most people do. But because I am no-till farming, I don't dig a trench for my seeds. I simply add a layer of this fresh soil. I'll sprinkle the seeds on, and then I'll put another layer on top and water it, never disturbing the soil. So there's a couple reasons why I do that. One, as you can see, because of the pumpkins and the zucchini, the beds have actually sunk. So I need to add more organic matter in. Now, you can't plant seeds in mulch, so I need to add more soil. This is a perfect time to do it. Now, the other reason is I treat seeds like baby plants, because they're going to be baby plants. So when I go and transplant a tomato or a pepper or an eggplant or whatever, that plant is going in its potting mix with new potting mix around it to give it the best success. And so for seeds, yes, they'll germinate in that soil. I know it's good soil, but I wouldn't use that soil if I was starting trays of seedlings. I would use a proper seedling mix, which is what this is. So having said that, let's dive into what this mix is. It's very simple. It only has 3 parts to it. You have your coconut fiber in this case. You can also use peat moss, but coconut fiber is a renewable resource, so I try to use it as much as possible. And then you have your regular compost. And then you have what I call the special sauce. But we'll get to that later. So for this mixture, it's simply a 1-to-1 of compost to either peat moss or coconut fiber. So for every scoop of that, you get a scoop of that. By volume, not by weight. Okay, so why do we use the coconut fiber or peat moss? Well, we do that because we need the mixture to be very light and airy, so that the seeds have the best chance to germinate, send that first root node down, and break through with their shoots. So that's why you use a quality seedling mix for this. Now the other reason is moisture retention. You know, compost, it will dry out. Whereas this stuff, mixed in with this stuff, you've got greater moisture retention. And so even though I will mulch, this stuff I know will hold that moisture until those seeds can get up and get established. So now that we have the base of our potting mixture done, you know, a 1-to-1 ratio, now we add in the special sauce. So now what the special sauce is, it is a 5-part mixture of the best soil additives that you can add to your garden 12 months of the year. Now first up, we have the Epsom salts, and we add those in because they add 2 important macronutrients in magnesium and sulfur. Then we have a canola meal, which is a slow release nitrogen fertilizer. It is a vegan fertilizer, it is organic, it also does hold some moisture. It is fantastic. I always try to add some canola meal when planting new beds or pots. And next up, we have your glacial rock dust. So your rock dust is important to add minerals back into your soil, because as we pull veggies out and eat them, our soils get more and more depleted of these trace elements and minerals. So you always got to add rock dust to your soils. I try to do it several times a year. Now the 4th ingredient we got is ground oyster flakes. Ground oyster flakes are great because they add calcium and other nutrients back into the soil. And the calcium is important, especially this time of year, to combat the blossom end rot that you see in tomatoes and eggplants and zucchinis and even peppers. The ground oyster shell is unbelievable. You will see a marked difference by adding that into your soils, not just for baby plants and seedlings, but for established beds as well. Now the final ingredient, which is the most important for this mixture today, is alfalfa meal. Now alfalfa is great. Everyone knows it adds nitrogen, you know, back into your soils. People use it as cover crops. But beyond being an excellent source of organic slow release nitrogen, alfalfa meal also contains a hormone, triacontanol. Now what's important about this hormone is it's actually a plant rooting hormone. So when plants come in contact with it in the soil, the alfalfa meal releases this hormone, and plants can use it to grow better, faster, stronger roots. So alfalfa meal is in all my mixes. You know, obviously it's great as a seedling mix to get seedlings established, but also if you're transplanting plants, you know, from your small pots into your garden or into larger pots, or if you're growing cannabis in pots under grow lights, you gotta have the alfalfa meal in there, because that hormone ensures that you have the best root system possible. And you know that if your plants have the best root system, they're gonna grow that much better. So to add this mix, I simply just grab all 5 ingredients at once and mix it in. Now you can see here, the alfalfa meal is coming in 2 different varieties. You have alfalfa pellets as well as the powder. Now I prefer the powder for the seedlings, obviously because I need a finer mixture, but in this case I only had half and half, so we will make do. And you just go ahead and mix that in. Okay, so now that we've made our batch of excellent seed soil, we can go ahead and lay down the lines for where we're going to plant the lettuce seeds. So there you go. Just a thin layer, you know, maybe about 2 inches deep. Probably on this bed, I'll add a little bit more because this bed did sink more than the other ones because of the pumpkins. But yeah, there you go. The first layer, I'll go ahead and I'll finish the other 2 beds and then we'll give it a watering. Okay, so we've got our base of seedling mix all nice and watered in all the beds. Let's go ahead and add the seeds. Oh wow, check this guy out. Cool. Pacific tree frog. Well, we're about 2 kilometers from any standing water other than my fish pond, and I know these guys aren't laying eggs in there. So, pretty cool to see them in the garden. So for our seeds, we're just using generic, non-GMO lettuce seeds from the bargain bin at the local hardware store. I'm going to do 1 seed pack per bed. You know, the seeds are normally $1.99 or 99 cents each. They were on for 3 for $1. So I bought, I think, 12 packs for $4. So yeah, very cheap. So let's go ahead and get these beds seeded. So seeding the beds is very easy this way. You simply just sprinkle the seeds down. Try to space them out pretty evenly. In this case, it doesn't really matter because I'm not doing a cut and come again where I need, you know, 4 to 6 months of lettuce harvesting. You know, I'm doing a basically 2 months of growth with a massive cut at the end. So you can be pretty liberal with the seeds and you don't have to be as diligent with the spacing. It's basically we just want to grow as much as possible. Okay, so it might be hard to see, but here is 1 row of our green leaf lettuce sitting on our seeding mixture. So I've got all 4 beds done. All we have to do now is cover the seeds with another layer of that seeding soil mixture. So now that all the seed rows are covered with another layer of the seed mixture, we can go ahead and water them once more. So that's it. In about an hour and a half, we've transformed 4 beds that were basically at the end of their life, neglected, not doing well. Probably the worst 4 beds out of the 84 beds I have on the property. You know, we transformed them, they're all cleaned up, and now we've set ourselves up to have pounds and pounds of lettuce harvesting in about 6 weeks to 2 months. The other bonus is having seeds planted here. I know that I'm going to baby them and I know that I'm going to really look after them as far as watering and maintenance go. And so the tomatoes that are behind them, they're only going to benefit, you know, because they're going to get some of that seedling mixture nutrients is going to, you know, leach off into their area. They're going to get more water. I'm going to be checking on them more regularly. So you'll see a transformation in those tomato plants probably in as little as a week, maybe 10 days, they're all going to be about twice the size. We'll do a follow-up video when the lettuce seeds start to germinate, and then we'll have a look at those tomato plants as well. So that's it for today, guys. I gotta go inside and get some lemonade. It is far too hot to be working out here. As always, leave any questions or comments down below, or maybe links to videos that you've done that covers sort of a midsummer reclaiming of a bed that's not doing well. I'd love to see that sort of stuff. Click subscribe if you haven't already, and for those of you that have, I really do appreciate the support. I'll see you next time.